Much. I hope everyone had a delicious breakfast this morning. I am Josh, and uh, thank you to Annika for inviting me today into my first virtual visit in Montana ever. I have never visited or Skyped with anyone in Montana, and I'm so excited to be there today and to be here today. And I'm an author. I write picture books like Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast and a handful of others, and I'm going to read you one today. But first, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the story of Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast. So, this book, I came down for breakfast one day, and I asked my kids right now, they are in 7th grade and 10th grade. And so my daughter is watching a horror movie, and my son is playing video games. And at the moment. But so in 7th grade and 10th grade, when they were about 3 and 6 years old, I came down for breakfast one day and I asked my kids what they wanted. And one of them said, I want pancakes. And the other one said, I want French toast. And I was like, I'm a terrible cook. One time I even burned their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so while they were eating their waffles, I thought, ooh, that might make a fun idea for a story. A pancake and a French toast arguing about something, but what would they argue about? So I asked my kids, I thought, what would they argue about? And they said, and one of them said they should argue about syrup. And I thought, that's brilliant. Of course, syrup. And so that is what happens in this book. Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast race for the last drop of syrup. And um, and the thing is, though, that I can't remember which one of my kids came up with that idea. So now they argue about who came up with the idea for the ending. So it started with them arguing about what to eat for breakfast, and it continues today with them arguing about about who came up with the idea for the ending. And so I wrote this book, and I spent a year and a half writing the words for this book. And does anybody like to write? Are there any writers out there or storytellers? Oh, awesome. So does anybody do first drafts or rough drafts or sloppy copies? So that's what I did. And then I shared it with my friends. Does anyone like to share their writing with their friends? I love to share my writing with my friends. And so I'd share it with my friends, and they would tell me what they liked and what they thought could be better. And then I did a second draft. Does anybody ever do second drafts or editing and revising? Yep. So that's what I did, a second draft. And then does anybody do third drafts? Does anyone do 14th drafts? Because I wrote this book 14 times over a year and a half. And after a year and a half, I finally sent it to some publishers. And a few months later, one of them wrote back to me and said, we like it. We want to make it a book. But would you do one more revision for me? So, oh, Rowan, you've got the book there. Awesome. And so I did 15 drafts of this book over almost 2 years. And then finally, after 2 years, you'd think, oh, it's done, right? Not even close. They had to find the illustrator, Brendan Kearney. And Brendan, does anybody like to draw? Are there any artists out there? Brendan loved to draw, and he has drawn his whole life. And I wish that I practiced my drawing more when I was a kid, because if I did, maybe I would be illustrating my own picture books. But keep practicing your art, because, so I'm not going to read this one to you. I'm going to read another one. But in this book, there is while they're racing for the last drop of syrup, there is a bean avalanche. Does anybody know what an avalanche is? It's kind of like when rocks or snow fall down a mountain, or in this case, beans. So that's what happens in this book. And Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast, he spent an entire week of his life coloring in beans. A whole week of his life coloring in beans. So if you keep practicing your art, someday it could be your job to color in beans, because that is a real job. And then when he finished all the drawings, then it was almost done still to get printed and sent to all the libraries around the world. And finally, this book took 3.5 years to finish. 3.5 years. So think about it this way. If you had an idea on the first day of kindergarten, and you worked on that idea for all of kindergarten, and all of first grade, and all of second grade, in the middle of winter in third grade, that is when the book would be done. That's how long it took to make this book. Now, not all books take this long. Some take a little less time, some take even more time. But anytime there's a book that has pictures illustrated, it's going to take a little more time because it takes a long time to draw a lot of pictures and to make sure that they're perfect. But when I saw Brendan's pictures for this book, I thought, I love it. I love this so much. I want to write more stories in this world. So I immediately started trying to think of a sequel. And has anyone ever read a book and then then it has a sequel, or seen a movie that has a sequel, and the sequel, the second one's not as good as the first? Does that ever happen to anyone? Because that happens to me sometimes, and I really didn't want this to be disappointing. So I was trying to think of a way, how can I make sure that the sequel is not is as good or even better than the first? And then I thought, I had a brilliant idea. What if I make it a holiday book? If I make it a holiday book, then everyone loves the holidays, right? And I could put all holiday foods. And so I wrote The Case of the Stinky Stench. And I wrote The Case of the Stinky Stench, and I had all these holiday foods in it. And there was a gingerbread village, and there were potato latkes swimming in applesauce river, and all these different holiday foods from different cultures around the world. And I sent it to the publisher, and they said, we love it. We love it so much that we want kids to be able to read it year round. And you know what? They asked me to take out all the holidays. And so I thought, oh no, I guess I can take out the holidays, but it was a mystery. Has anyone ever opened the fridge and smelled something kind of funny? Because that's what happens in the case of the stinky stench. And in the case of the stinky stench, Inspector Croissant needs Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast's help to try to figure out what is causing the fridge to smell so bad. And so I'm not going to spoil it for you, although it is spoiled food, but the culprit, the actual stinky stench, the cause of the stinky stench, is a holiday food. And I left it a holiday food. But I took out all the rest of the holidays, like the gingerbread village. Oh, yeah, I see you got it there, Rowan. Don't spoil it for anyone. So it's a holiday food, but I took out the rest. So now there's no gingerbread village scene, and there's no potato latkes. I switched it to tater tots swimming in applesauce river. And so that was what happened here. And then, something I thought about this. The first book in the series was a race, and the second book was a mystery. And I was thinking, in the first book, they were running out of syrup. That's a problem that you could have. And then in the second book, there's another problem in the fridge. Something starts to smell. And I realized, what other problems could there be in a fridge? And then it hit me. Has anyone ever opened the fridge and something in the back was a little bit too frozen or too cold? Because that's what's happening in this fridge. One time I tried to grab some hummus that was in the back of the fridge, and it was like an ice cube, hummus, ice cube. And so I thought, yeah, what if it's frozen? And I already had a race and a mystery. And I thought, pardon me, I thought, what if I make this another genre? So I made it an action-adventure spy thriller in Mission Defrostable. And Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast get recruited by Agent Asparagus. She works for the FBI, the Fridge Bureau of Investigation. She helps them, or she needs their help to try to figure out what's freezing the fridge. Again, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there is. So I didn't tell you at the very beginning, at the end of this book, neither one of them get the syrup. Baron von Waffle gets the syrup. And if you look really closely, you can even see that at the very end, each book has a fancy page that folds down. And at the very end of this book, you can see Baron von Waffle is peeking out of the freezer. And he's peeking out of the freezer, and that made me think that maybe he knows his way around the freezer. So in this book, he ends up becoming Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast's friend by the end. Spoiler alert. And then I was going to visit schools and bookstores and libraries just like yours around the country, and people would ask me questions. Kids, just like you, would ask me questions. And you know what? You're going to have a chance in a minute to ask some questions after I read some books, but they would ask me questions like, how are Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast not spoiled yet? They've had 3 adventures in the fridge over many years. And in fact, on the very first page of the very first book, it already says that they are leftovers. So I thought about this and I realized I need to address this. How are they not spoiled yet? And that is where we get short and sweet. And I'm going to read this to you right now. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second to load everything up. And I got to click some buttons. And I'm going to read Short and Sweet. Now, all of these books are illustrated brilliantly by Brendan Kearney. And, escape, go back. Okay. And now, share screen. There we go. So this is Short and Sweet, written by me and illustrated by Brendan Kearney. Still in the fridge and behind the Swiss chard. Wait, I'm assuming you can see my screen. Shout if you can't, by the way. Still in the fridge and behind the Swiss chard, in their apartment on Crust Boulevard, prepping a tea party ready to host, stood Lady Pancake beside Sir French Toast. Just as they finished the boiling and baking, Pancake said, "All of my muscles are aching." "Also," said Toast, "my complexion is pale." Pancake then screamed, "Are we both going stale?" Baron von Waffle, their guest, said, "You're gruesome. I've never seen such a hideous twosome." The duo was shocked by their newly made friend. Waffle went on, "I don't mean to offend. In fact, it so happens there might be a cure. Check out Professor Biscotti's brochure. Starting to mildew or curdle or crumble, don't sit around and complain, pout, and grumble. Try out my patented de-spoiling ray. Feel fresh and young again. Visit today." And this is a biscotti. It's sort of like a crunchy almond cookie that sometimes has chocolate along the edges. I used to eat them at my grandmother's apartment all the time. She always had a big bucket of biscotti that she got from Costco or BJ's or something like that. And so we'd always snack on them there. Off to Professor Biscotti's they strode, down to her lab out by Artichoke Road. Ooh, does anyone like artichokes? Artichokes are a really, really delicious vegetable. They're really fun to eat because when you roast them, you can scrape the leaves with your teeth. Everyone should ask for artichokes for lunch today, okay? Say that Josh Funk said so. "Greetings," she said as she tightened a gear. "Here for despoiling? Terrific, sit here." And look at this despoiling ray. How cool is this despoiling ray? All I wrote were the words despoiling ray. And Brendan Kearney, he's the illustrator. He looked around his kitchen, he looked around his fridge, and he said, "What would make a despoiling ray?" And then it hit him. Oh yeah, an avocado sliced in half. And I think it's brilliant. This is so cool. How amazing is that? That all I wrote, despoiling ray, and he did all the rest. Nervously, Pancake and Toast settled in. Biscotti gave one tiny knob a quick spin. Oh, and look at these chairs. I want one of these chairs. They've got a Swiss cheese cushion and a slice of bread for the back and pickle footrests. I'm not saying, if you ever want to get me a gift, if you happen to be out shopping and looking for gifts for me, this is what I want. No pressure, but if you happen to be looking for something for me. With whooshes and whistles, a spark and a blast, the gadget emitted a laser at last. "Where did they go?" Waffle asked through the smoke. "Right over here," a falsetto voice spoke. And look, they shrunk into tiny little kids. She's got a little teddy bear. He's got a blankie. "Explain what you did to them," Waffle demanded. Professor Biscotti said, "I'll be candid. I over-despoiled them with my device. I'm ever so sorry. I'll charge you half price." Waffle stood fuming. His monocle shook. "Charge us," screamed Waffle. "They're children. Just look." "Eek," shouted Pancake. "Oh, Waffle, I'm scared. The monster will eat us. Let's run," Toast declared. "Eat you? I'm scary. No, wait," Waffle uttered. "I thought we were friends, but hey," Waffle stuttered. Shrieking, the duo of pint-sized companions scampered and slid all the way to Grand Canyons. Over the Great Wall of Pine Nuts they dashed, and down through the fjords of Farfalle they splashed. Does anyone know what a fjord is? It's sort of like a frozen waterfall landform they have in Scandinavia. Does anyone know what farfalle is? It's sort of like the bow tie pasta. I love the bow tie pasta. That's my favorite pasta. And I really just wanted to make your parents and your librarians have to say, "Fjords of Farfalle, fjords of Farfalle, fjords of Farfalle." Out of the lab came a blubbering moan. Baron von Waffle sat weeping alone. "They were my friends, but they ran off and fled. Am I a monster? 'Cause that's what they said." Professor Biscotti approached and began, "My gadget, I'll fix it, but we need a plan." And oh, look she's got all these little cookie minions. They're her minion cookies. One of them's even in her hair. I think it's hilarious. "Phew, are we safe now?" asked Toasted Pie Pier. Pancake responded, "No waffles round here." Then in the distance, they spotted Lime Square. Pancake asked, "Race ya?" And Toast said, "I'm there." Down to the city they skipped and they hopped until past a playground where both of them stopped. Pancake played fetch with a little pet nugget that scampered away when she offered to hug it. Toast tried the seesaw, the swings, and the slide. That's when he saw something better inside. And I don't know if you can tell what this is, but this is a library. We were going to call it a library, but we decided not to perpetuate the mistake of calling it a library. But we do have, if you look really close, these berry statues on the side, so you can see that there is still evidence that it used to be called the library. Waffle, still sour, knew just what to do. This is the bait that'll capture those two. Biscotti kept working in her laboratories while Pancake and Toast sat enraptured by stories. And if you look really, really closely, or you get a copy of this book out from the library, you'll be able to see I made up a bunch of silly book titles like Don't Let the Pecan Drive the Bus, and The Book with No Pickles, Sylvester and the Magic Pepper, Harold and the Purple Onion, Mushroom on the Broom, and Wolfie the Gummy, and a whole bunch of others. Until the two children inhaled something sweet, and instantly both of them raced to the street. They followed their noses past fjord, wall, and hill, and then kept on running and running until... "The old syrup trick," Waffle said with a smirk. "Professor, I've got him, so now will it work?" She answered, "I hope so, or else this endeavor might cause your two friends to be children forever." And look, he lured them back with little tiny baby bottles full of syrup. How cool is that? That's what he was making on the last page. He was making syrup. He was making syrup because he knew they loved syrup and they would lure them back. It whooshed and it whistled, except nothing sparked. "Something is missing," Biscotti remarked. Waffle responded, "You've got to succeed." "Okay," said Biscotti, "but what does it need?" Waffle said, "Looks like the cogs are too slick. Maybe some syrup will get them to stick." And he's pouring syrup on the cogs. Is it possible that syrup will solve two problems in this book? It will lure Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast back to the lab and fix the machine? Is there anything syrup can't do? It whooshed and it whistled, it sparked and it blasted, and when the smoke emptied, they stood flabbergasted. "Yes," said Biscotti, "success, they've returned." Waffle, however, looked rather concerned. Biscotti continued, "Cheer up, you look awful." "They called me a monster, remember?" said Waffle. "So you were the Waffle," said Pancake, appalled. "But we were the monsters," Sir French Toast recalled. "Waffle, forgive us, dear friend," Pancake moaned. "We're ever so sorry," Sir French Toast atoned. Waffle stood silently, face filled with grief, and then Waffle let out a sigh of relief. "I worried I'd lost my new friends," Waffle wailed, "but everything's normal. You're back," he exhaled. "Waffle," said Pancake, "we'll always be chums." "Exactly," said Toast, "till we wither to crumbs." In the apartment they finished their tea. All of their aches and their mold ceased to be. The trio felt splendid in spearmint condition as friendship prevailed through their small expedition. And here they are having a party at the end, which they always do. In the last book, this is Juice Springsteen playing. In the last book, it was the Peach Boys, and in the one before that, it was Spuddy Holly and the Croquettes. And then there's the big giant fold-out page that each book has, where you can see the entire adventure. And that is short and sweet. Now, a lot of people ask me if there will be another book, and you know nothing about whether or not there will be another book. But if there were going to be another book, I like to think of this one as a sci-fi comedy, and then later on I realized it's sort of actually a magical body swap type book, like kind of like Freaky Friday or Big. So we had a race, a mystery, an action-adventure spy thriller, and now a sci-fi comedy. So maybe the next one will be a heist, or could be an alien invasion, could be, a reality show dancing competition. I mean, it'll be a different genre, whatever it is. But, we won't know. Check back in a few months to see if there's going to be another one. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, I'm also, I've written more books besides Pancake books. I have a series of fractured fairy tales that I've written. It's not Jack and the Beanstalk. It's not Hansel and Gretel. It's not the Little Red Riding Hood. Has anyone ever, does anyone know any of these fairy tales? Because has anyone ever thought about fairy tales and how characters in fairy tales do things that aren't very smart? For example, if a giant beanstalk grew in your backyard overnight, what would you do? Would you climb all the way up into the sky, into the clouds, break into a giant's house and steal gold from a giant? Or would you call a gardener? Because I'd probably just call a gardener. And if you lived on the outskirts of the woods your whole lives, don't you think you would know if you dropped food on the ground, breadcrumbs, that animals would eat them? I mean, come on. And if you walked into your grandmother's house, and your grandmother, in your grandmother's bed was a hairy four-legged wolf, don't you think you would be able to tell the difference? I mean, come on, Little Red Riding Hood, you must know. So I wrote these stories thinking that it would be fun to see what if the characters in fairy tales were smart and they didn't want to climb the beanstalk and they didn't want to go walk in the woods by themselves. And so I have these, but I was actually, because today's visit is sponsored by the library, I thought that I would read some books that I've written about the library. Now, this book here is called Lost in the Library, and it is, has anyone ever been to New York City? It's pretty far away. Oh, a few people have, awesome. So in New York City, there is a big fancy library, the New York Public Library. And that library is a famous library, and outside that library, there are two lion statues that sit outside the library. Their names are Fortitude and Patience. Wait, where did Patience go? It was right here. Where did you see where he went? You know what? He must be lost in the library. Would you like me to read this book? I think I'm going to read this book to you so we can see what happened to Patience. And this book is about a real place. It's not nonfiction, although maybe it is, I don't know, but it is actually about a real location in New York City. And I'm going to read it to you right now. Okay, here is Lost in the Library. And after this, I'm gonna take some questions. So if you have questions, I would love to take them. So start thinking about them while I'm reading this book. This book is Lost in the Library, and it's illustrated by Stevie Lewis, and her illustrations are amazing. I love them so much. She is amazing at doing set design and things like that. Early one morning, while all New York slept, night was transforming to dawn. Silence filled all of Manhattan except Fortitude woke with a yawn. Patience, good morning, he said from his plinth, but Patience was nowhere in sight. He'd entered the library's grand labyrinth when no one was watching last night. Fortitude never abandoned his post, but Patience had not yet returned. As sunlight ascended across the East Coast, Fortitude grew quite concerned. How could he do this? He's never been late. Fortitude leapt on all fours, lacking all patience. Get it? Because Patience is gone. He couldn't just wait and scampered through Astor Hall's doors. The ceiling above was 12 elephants tall and dozens of buffalo wide. Patience told stories of rooms like this hall, but it was a new world inside. Twisting and turning, he'd noticed some stairs. Patience might climb, he supposed. When reaching the top, he was caught unawares. A frolicsome statuette posed. Looking for someone, she asked with a grin. Fortitude nodded his head. Patience, my partner, my sidekick, my twin, I really must find him, he said. And this is a real statue it's called A Frolicsome Girl. This statue is located on the 3rd floor of the library. And it was actually, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago when Pokemon Go was popular. This was a very hot spot to find Pokemon, apparently, I've been told. The Rosemane reading room, back to your right. Sometimes he's there, the girl stated. Fortitude thanked her and ran out of sight, hoping his buddy awaited. Over and under the tables and chairs, Fortitude looked high and low. Searching the shelves on the walls, up the stairs, Fortitude paced to and fro. And this reading room is the size of 2 football fields. That's how long it is. It's 2 city blocks long. Does your library have a reading room that's the size of 2 football fields? I don't know, probably not, but maybe just one football field. After what felt like forever, he ceased. Patience just wasn't around. Fortitude heard someone's voice to the east and eagerly followed the sound. People in portraits that lined every wall whispered and gossiped away. So Fortitude roared out his loudest of all to turn their attention his way. Has anyone noticed a lion like me? He's quiet and peaceful and sweet. A grumpy old man said, no lion but thee. Now please go back out to the street. Exiting gloomily, Fortitude wandered back through the library's maze. Patience, dear Patience, where are you? He pondered while thinking of happier days. And you can tell this is a flashback because it's got sort of like a vignette border type thing. You'd know that if you used Instagram. In the beginning, young Patience was shy, but Fortitude thought he was rude. Weeks and then months and then years traveled by. Eventually, friendship ensued. Patience told stories of ducklings and moons, of wardrobes and buttons and fun. On cold, snowy evenings or hot afternoons, Fortitude cherished each one. And so I don't know if anyone has any ideas of what stories I'm referring to here, but ducklings, I was thinking of Make Way for Ducklings. I'm from Boston, so that's a big story around here. And moons, there's a lot of stories about moons, like Goodnight Moon or Owl Moon, and wardrobes. I don't know if anyone's read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And buttons. I was actually thinking of Corduroy, not Pete the Cat, but yeah. Rays from the sun had begun creeping in when water flew out from a sink. A little bronze lion said, gotcha, I win, and gave him a satisfied wink. The lion said, wait, you're not Patience? Oh no, the splash, it's a game that we play. Patience, asked Fortitude. Where did he go? The sunrise is minutes away. Today, haven't seen him, the lion confessed. But I wouldn't worry, old chap. Perhaps you require some help on your quest. I think what you need is a map. And there are these water fountains, lion water fountains on every floor, but the only one that works is on the first floor. So you know he's on the first floor now. And down there, the room there's a map room that has like hundreds of thousands of maps in this room. This library, by the way, is more like a museum. When I went there with my son, he was like, this isn't a library, this is a museum. And it feels like that. Fortitude scanned every atlas he could before tossing each to the side. Only a library map would do good. Eureka, a visitor's guide. How many hundreds of rooms can exist? Reading the map, he was shocked. Fortitude dashed to the places he'd missed, except through the doors that were locked. He searched every floor from the first to the third. Patience just couldn't be found. Fortitude thought, I will not be deterred. What's on this floor labeled ground? Fortitude quickly crept down the dark hall and into a jungle of joy, with colorful pictures adorning each wall and books for each cat, girl, and boy. Fortitude prowled past Sendak and Rylant, Yolen and Pinckney and Bloom. While keeping his footsteps impeccably silent, he heard something in the next room. Patience, said Fortitude, what are you doing? But Patience stood still as a stone. Get it? As a stone. The sun's almost risen, the pigeons are cooing, you've got to get back to your throne. Just one more paragraph, Patience declared, and something caught Fortitude's eye. There lay the stories that Patience had shared. The monkeys, the pebble, the pie. I don't know if anyone recognizes these books. This one is Caps for Sale. I love my caps. And the pebble, this is Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. And the pie, this would be Amelia Bedelia. Patience, did you learn these stories for me? Fortitude asked, but he knew. Patience just nodded and said, well, you see, I love sharing stories with you. The lions returned to their guard on the street, and nobody noticed they'd gone. Fortitude sat in his usual seat, and slowly the day carried on. But something was missing, though Patience was found. Fortitude still felt a need. Patience, he said, when there's no one around, tonight can we sneak in and read? And that is the end. And there's a bit of back matter at the end about the library as well. And one thing about the back matter at the end was, I wrote this book in 2017 and it came out in 2018, but there was a note here that says at the very end that I wrote the most of the back matter, but the library double checked it. The people who worked at the library double checked it, and they added this one line. As of 2020, the Children's Library will be located at the newly renovated Mid-Manhattan Library across Fifth Avenue. So they were moving the children's room across Fifth Avenue. And the whole point of this book is that he finds Patience in the children's room. And I thought, oh no, this is terrible news. And a little backstory about this book. This book was not my idea. It was actually the librarian's idea. And they worked with the publisher Macmillan to find people to make the book. And I submitted a sample of my writing, and they chose me to write it. And they even gave me the plot. They gave me the plot. They said, Patience goes missing. Fortitude searches through the whole library for him, getting a tour of the whole library, and eventually finds him in the children's room. And then they're moving the children's room. I was so bummed. I thought, oh no, they're moving the children's room. This book won't even make sense in 2 years. And then I realized, wait a minute, every story that you write, there has to be a problem, some sort of conflict. And I realized that could be the conflict for the sequel. And so I shared an idea I had with the library, and they said they liked it and I should write it. And the idea was that Patience and Fortitude go into the library one night and all of the books are gone. And so they end up going all over New York City searching for their books, their missing books. And they visit all the other library branches in New York City and all these other famous places around the city, especially famous in children's literature. And before they eventually find the library across the street. But that is this one. And so I would love to take questions. Take questions now. Annika, if you want to unmute and help lead, that would be fantastic.
So if you guys would like to use under the reactions, you can raise your hand, and then that way I'll know to unmute you to ask a question. So does anyone have one right off the bat? If not, I can ask one.
Well, it looks like Myers LA has one.
Oh, okay.
She's raising her hand, but
okay, that's fine.
How many books have you written?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. I have 15 books that are published, but I've probably written 100 books. The thing is, a lot of them were just sort of practice books. Some of them are books that, you know, it takes a lot of practice to learn to become a good writer, just like anything. Does anybody play any sports or play any instruments? I mean, if you think about it, playing a sport or playing an instrument, you know, you have to take lessons, you have to practice, and every once in a while, you might have a game or a concert, but most of the time that you're playing, you're practicing. And so my stories, for the most part, are they are practice stories, and some of them get really good and end up becoming those concerts, but a lot of them are just practice stories. So I've written a lot, but you know, there's only 3 things you need if you want to be a writer. 1, you need to know the alphabet. Does anybody know the alphabet? People? Okay, cool. 2, you need to know how to tell a good story. And the best way to learn how to tell a good story is to read a lot of stories. The more stories you read, the better you're going to know what makes a good character and a good villain, a good beginning, a good ending, exciting action scenes, and compelling dialogue. And you should read all kinds of stories. Read fiction and nonfiction. Read biographies, read fantasy, read science fiction, read historical books, read picture books and chapter books and graphic novels and comic books. Read all different kinds of things by all different kinds of people with all different kinds of backgrounds from all over the world. And that way you'll know how to tell your own story. And so 1 is the alphabet, 2 is you have to learn how to tell a good story. And 3, you just need to have fun writing. And that's it. Have fun and write. So those are the 3 things you need if you want to be a writer.
Oh, can I also show you something else?
Sure.
I made this book.
That's fantastic. Wow, did you do the illustrations as well?
Yep.
When that is amazing. You know, when I was a kid,
The Mountain Lion Attack, and it is an actual story.
That's amazing. When I was in 1st grade, I wrote this book. It's called The Little Man by Joshua Funk, published by Room 6 Press, copyright 1985. And here, it's a little man came down my street. In his hand was a piece of meat. Indeed, he was very sad. A piece of meat was all he had. And I even did the illustrations. It was obviously before I was vegan. And here's the About the Author page. It's about the author. You can see a little picture of me there. Joshua Funk is in the 1st grade in Newton, Massachusetts. Joshua likes reading, typing, writing, and sports. This is his 2nd published book. So this is my 2nd book. I don't know what my 1st book is. I found this at my parents' house. But so if you ever see a book that looks like this, but it's maybe like blue stripes or green stripes instead, maybe that might be my 1st book. But this is my 2nd book. So save that book that you have there so that when you are an author someday and you are doing visits all around the world, you can bring that book with you and say, this is my first book that I ever made. So.
Okay, I think Rowan had a question next.
When you were explaining about lady pancake and sir French toast, you said that once you accidentally burn a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how the heck did you burn a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
I know. I don't know, man. It's a mystery to me as well.
And they also wrote this.
Whoa, that's fantastic. Wow, did you do the illustrations as well? Amazing. Definitely save that for when you're an author, Rowan, and you can share that with all your fans.
Oh, your ear.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, let's unmute.
Elizabeth, Annie.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book
My favorite book that I ever read or that I ever wrote?
that you ever read?
You know, my favorite book that I ever read is usually whatever I'm reading right now, because I'm just so excited to go and read. One of my favorite, right now I'm reading a book, I read books before bed usually is one of my favorite times to read is at bedtime. And I always look forward to bedtime because then I can just read until basically my eyes are too tired to read anymore. But right now I'm reading a middle grade book called Bare Bottom, and it's about, it's in the Fun Jungle series by Stuart Gibbs. He also wrote Spy School. But one of my favorite books that I love to read to my kids, two of the books that inspired me to want to be a writer are Iggy Peck, Architect. This is one of my favorite books that I used to read to my kids. It's the same people who made Rosie Revere, Engineer, and Ada Twist, Scientist, and Sofia Valdez, Future Prez. And I love this book so much. When I was a kid, books were always about a teddy bear or a monkey or going to bed or the first day of school. And this one was just different. It's about an architect. And I thought it was really cool and fun rhymes and the illustrations were awesome. And another one of my favorite books is this one. It's The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. He illustrated Creepy Carrots, if you know that one. And he also wrote a chapter book called The Wild Robot. But I just loved the art in this book. It's the kind of art that I'd want to hang around my house. I loved it so much. And so, yeah, these are some of my favorite books that really inspired me to want to be a writer in the first place. So.
Great question. Anyone else?
Oh. Myers has another one?
Yeah, sure.
Did you cook the toast?
Did I cook the peanut butter and jelly? You know what? It happened so long ago. I really don't remember the details.
And so, I want to show you something else.
Okay. Wow, you won an award. That's amazing. That's more awards than I've ever won. Well done. Congratulations, everybody.
Yeah. What was the award for?
For doing this book.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Congratulations.
Well, thank you all so much for inviting me in to visit today in your libraries, and I really appreciate it. I hope.
Is there a way that they can learn more about your books, or do you have a website?
There's actually, if you go to joshfunkbooks.com, there's free downloadable coloring pages that you can print out, and music and videos that I've made about the books. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff there.
I think there's some really fun puzzles you can print out too.
Yeah, like crossword puzzles and mazes and things like that. So, and it's all free. Just go to joshfunkbooks.com. And I'm Josh Funk Books everywhere on social media and things like that. If you wanna find me there, or if you have any other questions, you can always ask a parent to ask me there. So.
Well, we are so honored that you joined us today on a Saturday, and thanks for visiting Montana.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and hopefully I'll get to visit in person someday.
Yes.
So.
Thank you so much, Josh.
All right, bye everyone.
Great. Bye.